I would like to call to order the meeting of the select board for Monday, April 10th, 2023. May I have a roll call vote? John Rand.
Here, here.
Brian Salisbury.
Here.
Kathy Bellata. Here. Ian Harrison. Yes. Here. Becky James. We're all here. Okay, so first up, we have are there any public comments on items not on the agenda?
I would like to make a comment.
Okay, please state your name and your address.
At the Lucio 6 Lincoln Avenue. So I guess personally, as an elected official, I've expressed this concern before. There's 2 meetings tonight of 2 elected boards at the same time. With all
Not
the
at the same time, we're gonna be over.
No, there's a site visit right now that I'm missing in order to participate in this meeting. So no, there is 2 meetings at the same time. So I shouldn't be penalized and not be able to attend this meeting, which I swung by the property, looked at it, but I should not have forced to be made this choice. So I've expressed my concern. It doesn't seem to happen. I think there's a really simple solution. Diane just doesn't schedule 2 planning board meetings. This is our week. I understand you might have had something on the town meeting, but this really isn't acceptable. So with the governance talking, this really shouldn't be that difficult of a solution to solve.
Thank you for your input. I do think it is difficult. We all have many obligations. Site walks do not have to be conducted at the same time. You can go down, do a site walk
As I did.
anytime.
As I did.
And that's what so when you say that you're unable to attend a meeting right now because of the other, that's not quite an accurate representation.
Well, I'm not there listening to the developer and whatnot, so I'm not getting that. So I was forced to make a choice.
And duly noted, we all have to make choices, and there are just so many hours when we can have meetings. So it's a tough thing to do. When
Well, this
you
isn't
have
your
as
week.
many,
This isn't the select board.
excuse me, Christina, let me finish. When you have as many people volunteering on boards and committees and the limited number of hours, given that most of us have to meet in the evenings, it does create a problem. And in an ideal world, we would be able to juggle them all. There's no ideal. So we do the best we can, but duly noted, and thank you. Okay, anybody else want to say anything? All right, without anything, we'll go right to the meeting regarding town annual election. First up is vote on whether to have voting by mail.
So a bit of a change here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Only in the evenings.
Yeah,
So the vote on mail, technically, I guess that's supposed to have been decided 45 days prior.
Yep.
So at this point, we're past that deadline, so there will be voting by mail.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. So there's no choice to be made at this point.
Right. Yep.
So it's by default, then that will happen.
Yep.
So you can move on to
okay. Yep.
letter B.
All right, item B, vote on whether to have early voting, whether or not to have early voting. So that is under the notes we received, item number 3 from the Board of Registrars. Everybody have a chance to look at that? Okay. John, comments?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's fairly straightforward. I understand what's going on with that and registrar's recommendation, et cetera. I agree.
Nothing?
I have a question. I didn't see numbers, like how many people take advantage of the early voting? Did I miss something?
No, this is just on the note we received.
Right, yeah, no,
No, I
I,
didn't have. Diane?
I didn't pull those numbers, to be honest, how many people came for early voting. Early voting was not required or even an option for local elections, except for, confused when we did it. So I don't have those numbers. And then, so I don't really have it. They just felt like it wasn't worthwhile at the local to have it, the Board of Registrars.
so, I feel more comfortable if we knew who we were negatively impacting,
Okay.
you know, It's hard enough to get people to vote. I mean, I'm glad we're gonna have at least the mail-in voting. That's an option.
Yeah.
So I think the early voting is less, less disturbed by not having early voting as long as we have the mail-in option. However, I have to be honest with you, the mail is just not as reliable as it used to be. It just isn't. So I would like to understand, you know, how many people are we impacting by not having early voting?
Okay,
Um,
so there is no timeline for this, really. We just need to make sure we announce if we're gonna have ours, so I can certainly get that to you by your next meeting, which is
18.
18th.
Yeah,
So I-
just a couple of things. So
Yeah.
I'd want to understand, because I just don't remember the early voting, how many days in advance did it entail?
So for a local, it's not, there's no regulations. We could do 1 day or 1 hour, or we could do 7 days
Okay,
for so many
because I'm
days.
just trying to
in
think
advance.
of, you know, the people who just can't get here on a Tuesday for a variety of reasons.
Mhm.
So absentee voting is something we've never, ever thought to get rid of.
Just to
Absentee
finish my
voting.
thought,
Okay, I'm sorry.
just to finish my thought.
Sorry.
If you are a business person and you have to travel at the last minute, you can't take advantage of absentee voting or mail-in voting because you have to mail it in early enough to be sure it's going to arrive. And sometimes you don't know. You know you're going to go on a trip next week because your boss tapped you on the shoulder and said, you got to go. And then you're going to miss an opportunity to vote. So I think it would be nice if it's not too labor intensive. We don't have to have it for 5 days, but
Mhm.
I feel better. If we're not gonna have it, I would feel better knowing, you know, we're gonna impact 2 people or not, but the election last year was as close as you can possibly get. Every vote counts. And so even if it was a Saturday or just something, I just want to give people as many opportunities to vote.
So if I may just jump in on that. So absentee balloting can be done at the counter up until the noon before the election. Early voting has to be done by 3 days at least before the election by law. So even if you decide you're going away last minute, you're gonna miss in-person early
And
voting.
you have to be able to get here when the town hall closes at a certain hour.
Well, we can set the time. We could do that on a Saturday.
That's all, I just want people to think about it, because we have limited hours in the town hall, and if you don't work on Cape Ann, it is hard to get here during hours. That's awesome.
That's true. So labor intensive wise, early voting needs at least 2 election officers. And then it needs to be set up. You need to process the ballots as soon as they're done. So it is, in my mind, sort of labor intensive if it's for 3 people. There's a percentage we can check. I'll
Yeah,
pull
like I said,
those numbers. I'll get them to
That'd be
you.
awesome.
I
Thank you
understand.
very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Diane. Anne?
I would like to have those numbers.
Okay, so regarding whether or not we approve early voting, we can go ahead and put that off until the next meeting.
In-person early voting.
Yes, in
In-person.
person voting, yeah, early in person. Thank you.
A lot of words.
Okay, next up, we have review and approve police staffing. Does anybody have any questions with that?
Okay. Well, I thought. Did I mute it? No. And it's. All right.
There we go. How's that? That's better. Okay. May I have a motion then to approve the approval of a sufficient number of police officers, but not less than 1 at the polling location at every election therein to preserve order and to protect the election officers and supervisors from any interference with their duties and to aid in enforcing the laws relating to elections as required by Section 72 of Mass General Law, Chapter 54, which was changed in Section 13 of Chapter 92 as the Acts of 2022. Further, to designate the police chief the authority to assign specific police officers according to scheduling and availability, The town clerk will advise the police chief on the location and the time the officer or officers is needed.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll moved by Ann Harrison, seconded Brian Solacey, roll call vote. Ann Harrison?
Yes.
Kathy Bellata? Yes. Brian Solacey?
Yes.
John Round?
Yes.
And Becky Jake says yes. Okay, next we vote to approve the annual town election warrant. Does everybody, do we usually have just one item listed like this one? Like the one that says be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Prop 2.5? Is that typically where these come on the warrant?
So any debt exclusion or override needs to have a ballot, but. So we don't do this when we have.
Okay,
The debt exclusion, or
okay,
this is statutorily set. The language.
okay. Any questions? Any concerns?
These weren't posted, so I don't know if people can't look at them. So I don't know what you're talking about, the first part, so the public is not able to follow along with you.
Typically, they are posted, our packets. I don't happen to know if this one is or not, but they typically are. This is the town warrant saying one member of the Mass Housing, Manchester Housing Authority.
Actually, this one wasn't my concern, it was what you were discussing about the early voting, mail voting. That's what I had no idea.
That was on the, that was the agenda that was posted.
Correct, but you were saying there was something that was circulated, those things are usually posted in a packet. And that wasn't posted in a packet, so I wasn't able to follow along what you were talking about.
Let's come on in and split copy. I don't think we got this one posted.
Well, I know Debbie's been ill, so if we missed that, apologies. That was what that, and I'm happy to email this to you if you'd like.
I really just had a question, I really just came in here because I couldn't find any other information, and I wanted to know the big why. So you didn't stop and ask if there was any other questions, and I did have a question on why. Why would the town not want to? Why was the town promoting to not go forward with mailing?
The town wasn't promoting that.
So I think the minutes of the Board of Registrars indicated that.
Well, that's the Board of Registrars, which makes a recommendation.
So you were going to vote on it tonight, but it wasn't an option. So I guess what information were you provided to vote on? I guess that's what I'm looking for.
Well,
I think
like
you can
most
We
meetings,
provided a summary of the recommendation from the registrars.
we have the people who are on boards or committees who make recommendations. It's like what we do when we go to town meeting. We have information that's presented on which we vote whether or not to support, and then we bring that to the town. It's the same
I've
process.
just never seen this language, and I follow the agendas pretty closely. I've never seen this language on the Board of Selectmen before.
Okay,
So
Diane?
if I could just jump in, it's the new Vote Act of 2022. So the new Vote Act changed elections responsibilities for the select board. So before every election, the select board has to vote to authorize the police chief to set up the policemen for the elections. And before every local election, the select board now has the option to accept or not to accept the recommendation of the Board of Registrars on whether to opt in to early voting and or to opt out of vote by mail. So these are all new this year.
So my understanding of the law is that if you do nothing, you have it. You actually have to opt out. So to me, having this conversation is stating that you had the inclination to opt out.
So then you do know, you are aware of this.
I'm aware of the law, so I'm
So
concerned why it's here.
opt out of
Mail and,
mail and vote by mail.
correct,
If you do nothing, you have mail in voting.
correct.
Correct, because the Board of Registrars spoke and recommended that we vote out, opt out. The Board of Registrars does not support vote by mail without an excuse. They support absentee balloting, which is different. And so that's why I brought it to the select board, but I brought it to them later than I was supposed to. So.
But we have no data, we have no numbers, how much it costs.
Christina, what is your concern?
The Board of Registrars do not,
Voting is a
Wait
concern.
wait a minute, please.
sorry.
Goes through the chair, that's the discussion. Christina, what is your concern here?
I'm looking at very minimal minutes from the Board of Registrars, and I've never seen this data on this question on an agenda before.
So it was asked and answered, Diane
No.
told you 2022 is.
So you asked me what my concern, am I allowed to express it?
If you can go ahead and get to the point, please, yeah.
Because the minutes did not say how many people were being excluded, how many people voted by mail, how many people came in person, how many people early voted, and what the cost was. None of that information was detailed. And so I did do it. So I'm here trying to listen to you have this conversation about it, because you would be voting to opt out of it, and none of that information I'm hearing, you don't have it, so.
It's also a moot point right now, but yes, and that's very valid point that there was not the information that you wanted to find. That's a valid concern. So thank you for bringing that forward. We won't be voting on that at this time because we did miss the date. So as far as for the voting by mail, but whether to vote early, did you have questions on the early voting in person?
No, I guess my concern is that you wouldn't have to vote on it if you were going to do it, so, to me. You were going to choose to not do it, so.
When, just to, if I may, Madam Chair, when we discussed this agenda item, I asked for the exact data that you did. And the town clerk said she will get it for us. And so that's why we're not going to vote on that line item tonight. We will vote on it at our next meeting on April 18th. So I asked for the same data. She will get it, and then we will vote. We will not vote on that piece tonight.
These are two different things.
Okay.
Christine is asking about item 1, which
Just item
was
one?
the vote on whether to have the voting by mail,
So you're not concerned with early voting, but just by mail.
by the voting by mail.
Right,
And,
so-
you know, we would have asked questions too.
If I may?
Yep.
I was planning to ask those exact same questions on the
Right.
vote by mail, but because we've already missed the deadline, it was a moot point, and I decided not to ask for that information. So when this gets revisited again, before the next election, Diane, heads up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask for the same information that Christina, but I would not have voted on anything without that data.
And I feel fairly confident that the rest of the board would have done the same. I mean, we don't just move forward without having some information. Brian?
No.
And
The fact that something is on our agenda does not presume any outcome. We don't
correct.
discuss anything that's town business except in public meetings.
Mhm.
But I don't understand why someone would come to the conclusion that we were going to vote one way based on it being on the agenda.
Well, it seems to happen
The reason
all
is
too and
because
all too frequent. And
you didn't need to vote on it if you were gonna keep the status quo.
point being, we had, you know, you made a comment that the town was leaning towards or was going to do something. And that's a false assumption. And it happens a lot. We get a lot of that where people say, oh, you're going to vote for 48, when in fact, that is not true. It happens, unfortunately, because I guess whomever people are listening to, disseminating incorrect information. Yes, Brian?
No, to that point, discussion doesn't mean anything as far as, you know, it's about coming up with a informed decision. The fact that,
Exactly.
the fact that it's on doesn't mean that it's gonna be, I think we're required to discuss it actually. So there's
That's
no
what we're
presumption.
supposed to do. Okay, are there any more questions on, let's see, we approved the police staffing, now we're on to the town warrant. Any questions on the town warrant?
Yeah, question. So Greg, is that the only question on the town warrant, the debt exclusion for school School turf field?
Correct,
Okay, everything else is election stuff.
yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure it was included, but
Mhm.
just wanted to see if other stuff was good. Or other things you like. Okay,
Okay, any other questions on the town warrant, annual town election warrant? May I have a motion, please?
Move to approve the, town election warrant as presented.
Second,
Moved by Ann Harrison, seconded Kathy Bellata, roll call vote, Ann Harrison,
Yes.
Kathy Bellata,
yes.
Brian Solacey,
Yes.
John Round,
yes,
and Becky Jakes says yes. Okay. That's all, folks.
Move to adjourn?
Okay, roll call vote, John Round,
yep,
Brian Solacey, Kathy Bellata,
Yes.
Ann Harrison,
Yep.
and Becky Jakes says yes.
Yep.
Thank you all. All right, do we have documents to sign? Did you stop the Zoom meeting?
Yep.
He is not, the local law to do.
So, if you,